Well, it's me and Henson and no Bob, so this would be the Wild Rob and Ronnie show.
I ain't as wild as I once was.
I ain't as once as I once was.
But I can be as wild
I'm
once as I once was.
I am twice, though.
Yeah.
What's going on, Henson?
Tired and wore out. Been out there humping it all day. The heat is right. But anyhow.
You're not as right as it's going to be.
Nobody don't care about that. We just been reading some, reminiscing, getting in a little dozer time. Did you hear or see about the article Tesla put out the other day about their new battery?
For your house?
Yeah.
How much subsidies are you going to get from the government?
Well, that's government does everything, I guess.
That's what's kept Tesla Motors in business.
Well, I don't care how much money they get. It'd be interesting to see if what they're saying is true. And that is that they can build a battery that you put in here and you put a mural on the side of it. It just looks like a wall in your house for $3,500, and then you can just get off the grid. So I figure by within a year, that'll be the end of the grid.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I wouldn't count on it if I was you.
Well, anyhow, seems to me like if they can build a battery with that type of capacity and dependability and whatever they're talking about, seems to me like that would be the main headlines on all the news. It would seem to me like it would be. But anyhow, I figure what's coming next then, since they can do this, and next they said their cars are going to drive themselves. I'm reading about that, and they're really hot on that where they'll do it all. I saw a picture of one. It seems like all computers.
Its own oil and gas itself up and pay the bills.
Well,
how many of them you reckon they got?
There's another machine, and they say this is going to do away with all airlines and whatever else. And you know what that is, don't you?
No.
Well, they had one on what was that space thing movie?
Star Trek?
Yeah, Star Trek.
Are you talking about a transporter?
Yeah. Beam me up, Scotty.
I wouldn't put too much confidence in that happening anytime soon.
I'm kind of leaning toward it. I mean, that's the thing. And then I believe.
You know what I never could figure out about that?
I never could figure any of it out.
They had to take everybody apart and put them back together, right?
Right.
Well, why didn't they? And that meant they had to save a pattern for them, right?
I know you're getting deep on me now.
If you take somebody apart,
I didn't believe it to begin with.
If you take somebody apart, you got to put them back together the same way you had them before.
Right.
Well, why wouldn't that cure all diseases and injuries? Because if you got a pattern of the guy the way he was before he got hurt, before he got shot, or before he got cancer,
yeah,
you just run him through there like he is and put him back together like he used to be, and he's all back where he started.
Well, now see that they can do that too. They got a thing called a 3M printer.
Yeah, well I know.
They can just print you out whatever you.
Now that's going to do something some of these days. That really is. They're going to start printing cars and everything else, bulldozers.
Mm-hmm. Sure are.
It's going to happen. They already got cars they printed that you can drive.
Okay, did they print that engine and gear drive and the whole
Probably
9 yards?
Not.
What did they do? Just print the body of it?
Probably.
Well,
but you could.
I can see where you might do something like that with.
You'll be able to print the whole car some of these days.
Most likely.
Or mold it one. That's the reason they're working on ceramic engines for one reason anyway. Besides the fact that they run hotter and more efficient, you can mold them.
Right.
From the ground up.
Mm-hmm.
You just pour mold, and you might have a few moving parts you got to put in later, but you just mold most of it, start it up and go.
Well, the rotary engine was kind of a step in the right direction. They're still used in a lot of places, but America's kind of.
I'm more interested in the rotisserie engine myself. That's what turns the meat while it's
turns the
cooking.
meat. If Tesla can do this, if they can build the battery, and I think they said their car was going 265 miles now on a battery charge. I guess we'll get off the grid here pretty soon.
I'm sure that, and Campbell County is just right on the cutting edge of technology. We've already got solar panels on our schoolhouses.
Yeah, I saw an article today where Knoxville had a marathon school board meeting. Went on for about 5 hours. And I reckon they discussed and solved about every problem there is. And one of the things, their subjects was solar panels. And I don't think they got a nod on it. I don't think it, maybe this was more of a workshop is what it was, I believe. It wasn't a meeting or a full-time meeting. But anyhow, back a year or two ago, and I believe it's the same company that we contracted with or bought the solar panels from this county. And at that time, even with all the freebies, it wasn't feasible. But now all of a sudden they've got another company, and this company is going to guarantee them something or another that if, okay, the way they worded it was like this, is if the solar panels don't get enough sun or don't produce what they're supposed to produce, they said they would come back
and clean them?
No, they said renegotiate. Now,
that don't mean they're going to do anything they don't want to.
Renegotiate sounds like a real guarantee to me.
I don't want to renegotiate. I want to know that I'm going to renegotiate for a profit.
Well, our local ones here, nobody's ever dug into it or asked questions of people of knowledge who know how the thing is working. The information that we, the citizens out here, could work with is up at the utility office. And it may be restricted that you can't get it or you can't get it straight. But the way our panels are set up, and I looked at the ones up the valley here at Valley View, those solar panels could have been put anywhere you want to put them because they're sitting there standing alone, generating whatever they generate and putting it back on the grid.
Yeah.
Now, people who think about solar panels, excuse me, they think that solar panel is producing the electricity that building's using, and it's not. It's producing electricity which is being sent back to the grid, and then the grid is producing the electricity or furnishing electricity that the building is using.
Well, let me ask you a question. What was the purpose of putting them on top of a building?
There was no purpose.
I mean, you get closer to the sun, you're 93 million miles, less 10 feet.
Okay. Down at Oak Ridge, they got a spot down there, I think it's where K25 was or whatever. But anyhow, the real estate down there is so hot. And when I say hot, I ain't talking about because of the sunshine.
Oh, you're talking about prices, maybe?
Yeah, price is all right.
Oh.
In other words, they can't utilize it for
4 million years.
For normal purposes. Let me put it that way. So they come up with the idea they could put solar panels on it. And I would guess that the people who maintain the solar panels probably wear real nice suits when they go out there.
Yeah.
And I believe they're totally contained and
probably ain't allowed to go too often either.
And they probably got a little buzzer on there.
Yeah.
That after 10 minutes they probably buzz and come back and somebody else goes back.
That bad, huh?
Well,
it sounds like Chernobyl.
I may be exaggerating on it some, but
maybe an hour instead of 30 minutes.
Well, they did not build buildings on this site. They said that it was a great site for solar panels, but
they didn't want to stir the dirt.
Well, anyhow, I thought that was interesting and so forth. I've been hearing a lot of discussion on education, and I come up with an idea, and I'd like for somebody to explain to me why, as long as we've been in the education business in the United States of America, that we don't have education down to an art.
Well, we do, but it's just a different art than you're expecting. We're in the art of taking money from one bunch of people and giving it to another bunch of people, and it's a fine art. We've done it well. We've increased our staffing considerably. It's just we ain't increased our teaching capacity that much.
Okay, in other words,
if we used to have one boss and 4 teachers, now we got 4 bosses and 1 teacher. That kind of deal.
Education is an intangible thing, and I got a cute little cartoon hanging on the wall. I always kept wanting somebody to give me the definition of education, and I've read it in the dictionary, and it didn't make a whole lot of sense. But anyhow, this little cartoon says, and it's a Snuffy thing, and it goes through the whole thing and whatever, and then Snuffy tells, Tater? He said, being educated is mean knowing what you don't need to know. So,
well, the fact of the matter is, we're still riding buggies in the space age as far as education goes.
This is what I'm saying. 200 years that we've been in the education business, we ought to have it down perfect by now.
Well, we've got the same methods. We just still stuck with the same methods. We just changed places. We could be, but it ain't going to happen. Not quick, but it needs to happen. We should be teaching every kid in a home, their home or neighbor's home, or some person decides to use his home as a school. And what I mean by that, I could take 10 students and the $80,000 that they generate, that they take from the taxpayers, and I would provide a classroom, 2 meals, and instruction, set up with the proper internet connections and everything so that it would be approved construction and turn out better results than we've got now. But it ain't going to happen. It eliminates all the bureaucracy, practically all of it, and shifts the school teachers. And it makes sense.
If we go back, say 40 years ago, or 50 years ago, or a little further back than that, we had the small schools, and you attended one of them also, where you had 2 or 3 grades that were maybe even the same room, but 2 and 2 still equaled 4. And my thinking on education is nothing more than ability to read something, understand it, and remember what you read. And same way with numbers. Once you got 10 digits, once you learn how to arrange them and whatever else, then when you get into the deeper, more sophisticated arithmetic and math, it's a different story, of course. But you don't get to that level without you can count from 1 to 10 and know how to arrange these digits to make it work. And it worked. Let me go back. In the 40s, we had this type of education, and we built the atomic bomb starting out with that type of education. We didn't have this high sophisticated
No, we
ball
brought
teams.
the scientists somewhere else.
That's right, we did. But
well, look, there always been overachievers, and there always will be, and that's the people that always had the determination to go out and improve themselves and increase their knowledge and to learn something. Our problem with the school system right now is we're making sure to bring that bunch of people that never did try and never did want to learn anything, and I mean the children of those people who have no ambition, and we're making sure that we dumb down and slow down the education process to take care of them.
it kind of puts me in the mind of something I saw the other day. I was going through town. I topped the hill and I could see 2 miles. Not sure it was a traffic jam. Here's 2 cars running side by side. They're going about the speed limit. Okay, those 2 vehicles set the speed of everything going through town.
Yep.
that's the same way in our education system. What we're doing, we're taking, I don't know what word you'd use to describe the underachievers, but they're setting the pace for everybody else.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
That's what it boils down to. And as long as we continue at that route, of course it works good for the
Underachievers.
well, it works good for the administration part of it.
Well, it means you need more people to do less work.
Well,
There ain't no way to set things right.
I don't think it'll change.
I don't either.
The only way that I see that the thing will change, and this part will come if we stay at it long enough, education, if we know it, will come to the point that we cannot afford it. I mean, that's all there is to it.
Yeah, but here's one thing. Technology has enabled us to do stuff a lot faster than we've been able to take advantage of it. That's just facts matter. I understand why we don't have internet schooling, because it's happened in a generation, and the school system was developed over many generations, and we can't expect society to adapt that fast, but it's what we ought to be aiming toward. Now you take these people that just helped us spend all this money on a new library up here, money that didn't belong to them but belonged to the taxpayers. Why in the world would anybody build a brick and mortar library today? If they'd wanted to build an internet access point or put Wi-Fi throughout the city, I wouldn't have been for spending taxpayers' money for either one of them, but if they were going to spend the money, they ought to have done something that made sense. When you can get 3,000 books on something you can carry in your pocket, it don't make sense to have a shelf full of books. Now, if you're wanting to be in the book collection business, that's one thing. But if you're wanting to do it for the good of the people and for the education of the people, you don't go build a brick and mortar building and put shelves in it.
I agree. I understand what you're saying. And whenever it comes to what we do as a society, it's just like a building. When you build that building, first of all, you're taking up real estate that could be taxable or could be producing something else. The city builds buildings and then or buys them, and then we've got them to maintain from then on. And a lot of them sit. They don't never do nothing or mean nothing. They just sit there, and the taxpayer pays for them.
Well, you know, you were talking about solar panels, and what I can't understand is if it's such a wonderful thing, why in the world do these people that have the solar panels don't set up their own solar farm and sell electricity?
The ones that are hooked up, and when I say hooked up, they're tied in with the system, with the TVA or whatever else.
What they're doing is the reason that they can't do it that way is it has to be farmed out into small groups that can actually get the subsidy that makes it profitable.
That's correct.
If it were economically feasible, if it worked, they wouldn't need the subsidies. They wouldn't be wanting to sell them. They'd want to build them and keep every one of them.
Okay.
I could put enough solar panels out there in my field to power the state of Tennessee if they're as wonderful as they say they are. And you know, there ain't been nobody out there won't set none up and pay the bill and give me the difference.
When was the last time you heard of a utility company like our locals here putting in a solar farm?
I don't hear of anybody doing it.
I don't either.
And the reason that they don't is it's not economically feasible without subsidies, and they can't get the subsidies.
Well, a subsidy ain't nothing but taking wealth from one group and giving it to another.
Yeah,
that's all it is. And I believe they call it socialism, I believe.
What they actually do is they're making it harder on the utilities, the existing utilities, because they have to buy this electricity at a higher price than they can buy it somewhere else. That means they have to raise our rates.
That's right, to pay that subsidy.
Subsidize them people with them solar panels that got a kickback for putting them on the roof to start with.
Mm-hmm.
What they need instead of a kickback was a kick in the head.
Yeah, well, this goes back to another thing. Let me show you something Knoxville is doing different than what we did in this county.
Okay.
they're discussing it and voting on it before they stick $3 million in it.
That is different.
That's different. Now, what happened here in this county, it was everybody that touched that thing should have been held accountable.
Yeah.
And there's people that we classify as being upstanding elected officials that knew everything about this.
Well, you might classify them that way.
Well,
some people don't.
no, I said that are considered.
No, they said that we might classify.
Okay, but
And I'm saying some people don't.
okay. But the thing of it is,
And might not.
how in the world did they keep this thing top secret? How did they get that many people to keep their mouths shut until they could get these things put on the buildings before they ever introduced it to the county commission? Now that had to be a miracle.
I was down there the first night that thing was ever mentioned, down there for another reason, and the mayor at that time made the statement, you know, he wanted to discuss something different that wasn't on the agenda, that he'd been approached by somebody who wanted to put these here solar panels on the roof, and it was just such a good thing, and we needed to look into it. And I'm thinking, well, what's the matter with these people? Well, that's a joke. That's got to be a joke. And I couldn't imagine it ever going anywhere. Well, that's how stupid I was. I didn't realize it was already a done deal then. Money had already changed hands.
I see what you're saying. And it was a joke
it was another,
on the taxpayers.
It was another year before this thing got up and running. And it got up and running before it ever got voted on.
That's correct. It did. And, well, if you go back to that, what is the point of all this county commission and all these committees and everything else when business is conducted in such a manner and nobody's ever held accountable? What's the point anyhow? What's the point of having this?
That sounds like Hillary. What's the point anyway?
There you go. What difference does it make now? Well, maybe she's right. What difference does it make now?
Well, I hope Bob don't have food poisoning, but he said he was kind of leaning in that direction, been eating his own cooking again.
Oh, Lord.
I recommended Vital Care to him, 562-9370. They can carry him up there and doctor him, send him home, clean him out good. If you need a ride to the hospital or from any kind of medical transport, I recommend Vital Care, locally owned, not government subsidized, no startup money from us. They've done it on their own. They take their own chances. If they don't please you, they go out of business. 562-9370 or call 911 and ask to be served by Vital Care.
Mm-hmm. We had need of their services here back a few weeks ago, and very satisfied.
Your mother-in-law?
Yeah, very satisfied with
they treated
their
you
performance.
well, did they?
Yeah, they were professional, no doubt about it. And
well, they're not depending on their brother-in-law to keep them a job. They're depending on their efforts to keep them a job.
Well, they, well, like I say, courteous and professional.
They should be.
Yeah. Anyhow, that's. I heard something a few minutes ago about Venezuela. It was on.
You mean the people where they can't even keep the lights on now?
Well, Venezuela. Back, I think the guy Chavez, I believe was his name.
Hugo
Chavez. I believe he, if I'm not mistaken, he got transported. Is what a transporter or whatever they call it.
Let me run something by you. You know, Venezuela was what kept Castro going after Russia went out of business.
Okay.
And they had all that their oil revenue, and they was who was subsidizing Russia. And now both of the Castro brothers are older than damn it, and we've had these sanctions on them people for 50 years. And they don't have this sugar daddy no more. Venezuela ain't got the money to do it. They can't even take care of themselves. So what do? We go down there and say, well, just forget we had any hard feelings.
Yeah.
You guys, we can rest your old age here and smoke them cigars. We're going to come take care of you.
You was just going to put them missiles down there to hold us hostage or whatever else. Blow us up.
But what I'm saying is, this is a stupid move. If it was any count 50 years ago, I'd have held out another 5.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just beginning to dig.
Yeah.
It had been kind of grating a little. I mean, it's getting to the quick now. It's in there, right up under your fingernail where it hurts.
What is the advantage? I mean, we've went 50 years without them cigars. I mean, we've had the cigars. They just come in. I believe Bill Clinton had a straight whatever for Havana cigars.
Well, we have had and are in the middle of a socialist revolution in this country, and people don't realize it.
We are. We're in it right now.
We have had changes, and still going on in this country. That part of this. I mean, they're making the next 2 years is not. They're not going to slack up. They're going to do through executive order and under the table deals and commitments that we can't get out of. They're going to do everything they can to continue this quiet revolution that we've had going on, and they're getting their way. And people are so stupid, and we can't get politicians with any gumption to go out there and admit what's happening because they're afraid they can't get reelected. Well, they ain't going to get reelected after this thing's finished anyway. They might well just throw in the towel now.
Well, Venezuela is a socialistic country.
Yes, sir.
And from what I heard, they're running out of all of the commodities, food, whatever else. And I made a joke about they running out of toilet paper. And whenever this first came out, the word was that Obama instructed the Treasury to start putting more fiber in the $20 bills.
Yeah.
So we could ship them down there so they could use them.
Yeah.
But if there was a survey run, sure, it's been a while back, and I don't know how much validity the survey had, but just talking to or listening to a lot of people talk, there's a large percentage of our population that does not object to this country going socialist.
That's right.
So,
I mean, some people are just wholeheartedly in favor of it. Now, all the way to communism.
Well, socialism is the first step to communism.
Mm-hmm.
It'll get us there. This old Affordable Health Care Act is nothing more than socialized insurance, mostly.
Yes, sir.
Is what it is. It really, when you come right down to it, it doesn't have. It's just a means by which to pay for medical services, but really the socialistic part of it is the insurance, is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the Supreme Court, there's where they changed some of the meaning of words. Instead of it being a tax, I think they called it a what was the fee or something. They didn't call it. It was illegal to make it a tax. So they changed a word and used a different word.
Yeah.
But still yet the IRS is the one that controls it and collects it and whatever else. So I guess it's going to be interesting to see where we go with the young generation that's coming up. And I go back to this guy, I believe his name is Waters World, and he goes out on the street. He's part of the Fox News thing, and he goes out and asks people questions. And I cannot believe that the general population out there, unless they've edited this thing, that people don't know more about this country and the politics of it and where we're at. It's unbelievable. They don't even know some of the names. I don't think most of them don't even. Some of them don't know who the president are supposed to be. But I heard also that there's some sort of and I don't know whether this is a proposal or a bill that has been passed, that high school students must pass the immigration test in order to get their diploma. Have you heard anything about that?
No, you mean for people who are here illegally?
No, I'm talking about for the high school grads.
I think they ought to have to be able to pass a civil
civil service.
Well, not civil service, a civics exam that includes the basic principles of this country.
The Constitution.
Yeah, and what makes us different than anybody else. I mean, main difference in this country and every other country before and mostly since, the founding belief was that you are born with certain rights, God-given rights, and government only has the authority that you allow it to have. And the thinking before that was always just reverse. The king or the governor or the pharaoh or the whoever,
the dictator or whoever,
they had the authority, and you could, whatever they were willing to give you was yours. We looked at it completely different. We said, what we've got is ours, and what you've got, we gave you. It's a big difference. Well, they didn't teach me that in school. I mean, we went through we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and in the Declaration of Independence, we all had to say that, but nobody just stopped and said, do you realize what this means? Nobody bothered to explain to me what difference it meant whether we were a democracy or a republic. It would have been simple to explain that.
That goes back to our education too. There was a lot of stuff that we were never taught, and that goes back to to another thing. But I think in school that we could be taught a lot of other things if we want. Once we get up into the high school area, one of the key things that I think would be good is to teach the stock market.
Well, we need to teach kids to read. We need to teach them to count and make change.
Well,
I'll bet you go over here at the high school and pull the graduates off of the floor when they get their diploma and take every one of them, and I bet you won't find a handful of them that can make change.
Well, I don't believe with a credit card you have to, do you?
Maybe you don't, but if you can't make change, you ain't going to be too well suited to do much of anything.
Well,
you're going to have to do a little thinking on your own. The machine may tell you what change to give taking $2.37 out of a $5 bill, but if the juice is off, you just have to wait till it comes on because you can't count.
Well, that's, you're talking about the juice, electricity. I've seen some of these little things on survivors, or what they call their, they used to, something about a bug out bag or a bug out. How do you get a big screen TV into that bag?
Well, you just have to have a bigger bag.
Bigger bag. I notice whenever they give advice to take whatever, I don't know, necessities, and I've watched a little bit of this survivor stuff till
you remember that guy's getting that making that diesel out of grease or something?
I'll tell you what, it's a fake that it's a joke, and I don't know why they. It's a joke. The whole thing is a joke. It's entertainment for people of lesser experience out there.
Yeah, that's
lesser experience. Anybody that's been around equipment, whatever, they know that this is BS, what they carry on with. But I don't never hear anything said about an EMP, electromagnetic pulse.
Well, they're rebuilding that big bunker out there in Colorado, I think, to put the government grid protected. I'm going to tell you now, this EMP thing, I think a lot of that is a little bit like the Y2K scare.
You think it can be done?
Yeah.
Can. Okay. It did happen back in, what was it,
1850 something?
18 something, yeah.
I'm not saying that we are equipped for everything now. I'm saying that it's not as hard to shield as they want us to think, I don't believe.
Okay.
Or as they think it is. There's a thing called a, what is it? It's not a Gaussian shield, it's a, well, I don't remember the name of it, but what it is, you can take you can enclose your electronic equipment inside a screen.
Right.
Not it don't have to be even full metal. It's
Right.
just screen wire and ground that, and it's shielded.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Well, they'd have you think you got to have 6 feet of concrete and stuff,
No.
and you don't.
You don't. But the what I was getting back to is where does FEMA stand on this, and where do they give any advice as to how to protect yourself or survive after such a thing, if it were to happen? And of course, my knowledge is there's 2 different sources of it. There's a man-made source and the natural source of it.
Yeah.
And the man-made one, the colonel that wrote the book 1 second after, he made a statement in there that the natural source concerned him far more than the man-made source, due to the fact that you can negotiate with someone who puts an explosive device out there in the, is it the ionosphere? How far up is it? It don't have to be that high up.
No, you probably couldn't do it up there. You'd have to do it just to,
What, 100,000 feet, 200,000 or something?
probably not that high.
Probably not.
in the 30, 40,000 feet range, I think.
But you know, in all of these people, they talk about their bug out bag. I've never heard any one of them say,
Faraday cage.
Yeah, right. I was informed that there are some local citizens.
I couldn't remember what that scientist, that pioneer's name was.
Faraday
cage, what's it called?
There is some individuals who have protected their equipment in this area. These people are in a position of no, I'm not talking about local. They're higher up in science. And if you go high up in science, you know what I'm talking about locally. There's one local location that's high in science.
We'll be talking about Oak Ridge.
I believe that's someplace down there.
Well, you take these metal buildings, they shield pretty well for that type. Now, I would venture to say that all my computer systems, buddy, I'm loaded with, would probably be better protected than those in most homes. But I've not made any dedicated effort to make it any better. Just happen to be inside a metal building.
Okay. What do you think would be the results on equipment? In other words, where you've got your, like on our trucks and stuff like that, the computers are sitting out there. The only thing between them and the elements is fiberglass.
Well,
other than them being inside an aluminum
that's
encasement.
my whole argument against all this fear we've had. I don't believe. First off, if it was inside a plastic case, inside a fiberglass fender, it probably wouldn't have any protection. And it could possibly, you drive down the road and it shuts down and that it'll never run again.
Okay. These computers are encased, they're in aluminum housing.
And I suspect there's a reason for that.
Well, it protects you from the elements.
Yeah, you also get a lot of stray noise. From a diesel engine, you don't have as much, but if you've got a gasoline engine, you've got all that sparking.
You've got, yeah.
And you get some static popping from a road tread and stuff, you know. All that is one reason they come inside a shielded device.
Okay.
Now, probably, if you had a problem with the electronics on most vehicles, it'll be outside the computer box. It'd be possible to melt off the ignition wire going to the switch. Not too likely, but I'm saying they tell us this thing's going to go off and suddenly all electricity is going to quit flowing. I don't believe that. I think we'd have a whole lot of problems. Our biggest problem is going to be these massive transformers that are used in the grid system that we don't have a stockpile of replacements, and it takes 3 or 4 years to build them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you knock some of them out, and that would be very easy to do because they've got wires going into them, and all you got to do is pick up that charge over
That's in the atmosphere,
and it can go backwards just as well as it can go forwards, and pop several of them things, and we're shut down until we get those things rewound. And if we went on a atomic bomb frenzy building like we did in World War II, we'd probably be back up and running 6 or 8 months. But you're going to have to remember there wouldn't be no electricity for the factories right then either.
Right, that's correct. The in this book that I read about, of course, it's a scenario. Our generating units right now, the majority of them are computerized.
Yep.
So if you knock the computer out of the thing, it's not going to automatically start up and go to running. And even if it does, you're going to have to supply it with fuel after so many hours.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever it starts going down the line like that, if you don't have a source of fuel, you can just go on and on as to the side effects of this thing. But anyhow, I was listening to this morning Knoxville's chief of police over the stabbing in the Greenway.
Yeah.
And I really got a interesting take on the way he said.
Before, had it?
No, it never had happened, and them greenways are safe. If I'd say that lady never had encountered such a situation either.
No,
but there were witnesses. There were witnesses to this, and undoubtedly, these witnesses were a distance away, or did not have the equipment to interfere with this situation.
That's right.
If they had
wasn't allowed to carry guns in that park, was he?
Well, the law has changed on it.
No, it wasn't in effect then.
But when does it go into effect? July?
I don't know, probably.
But the chief of police, in my opinion, was repeating and saying exactly what the mayor told him to say, is what he was saying. And the way that somebody gives me proof that those greenways or anywhere, not just the greenway, but anywhere is safe, is if they take their children or grandchildren out there and turn them loose and say, we'll come back and get you in an hour or two.
Yeah.
Now that tells me if they really believe they're safe.
Well, I'll say one thing, and we're just talking about energy. Energy is one thing you can depend on down at Digger Wilson's. He's got some of the finest propane, and that's just energy in a bottle. 562-5444, right in the middle of the road in Sawmill Holler. And he's got his summertime stock in. You can grill in comfort. You can run your campsite in comfort. And you can still put a little back for heating your home on them chilly nights, because we still probably got blackberry winter or something coming up.
Well, I emptied a can of it today, and I was just thinking to myself, it didn't have that smell to it, you know, that hickory smoke.
Yeah.
It's just natural. I was running on a tow motor, and as hot as it was out there, I was thinking to myself, boy, if
it'll empty the whole tank?
Yeah, if it'll empty it, maybe I can get a little time off here.
Boy, you must have done some work if you run a whole tank full today.
No, I didn't run it all today. I run about half of it today. We've been loading motors.
What kind of motors?
Junk motors down there in the old junkyard auto parts.
Oh, you ain't got them on a trailer. I'd come down and hook up tonight and take
No, but if you want to come load them up, well, it's useless trivia, but I've got a stack of them over there. It's getting up. It's about 2/3 as high as this room is. And as high as that 66 will lift, and I'm just putting them in a pile.
How far back?
The way they'll spread out, I guess they're covering about a 20 or 30 foot area.
Has anybody ever told you if you put a little oil in them things, they'd last longer?
No, this is byproducts of whenever, 30 years ago, whenever they used to come and pick up junk cars.
Yeah.
These old boys had these articulated loaders and had big long forks on them.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't take the engines.
Yeah.
And they'd take that car up and they'd take that fork and punch that engine out of the
They're not
vehicle.
diesel then?
No, they're gas engines. Yeah. Now I found a rotary engine in there.
A little old Mazda.
Yeah, a little old Mazda rotary engine.
You might well just go ahead and pack it with the rest of the scrap, because that's all it is now.
Yeah, that's all it is. I had intentions years
if
ago.
you don't pre-oil them suckers and you start them the first time, they're dead.
They're dead in the water right there.
They're completely dead in about a minute and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Never to be resurrected. 562-5444 for Digger Wilson, and if you want to resurrect your Mazda engine, I'm sure you get parts from Randy up at Napa Auto Parts. Jerry ain't here, but I think that's the National Auto Parts Association across the road from IGA, which is IGA, and they're at 562-2429. Even if Bob ain't here, it's 2429-2529. He's got me so confused now. He's done it backwards and doing it upside down. It's 562-2529 or 562-9406, and we do appreciate all of them helping us out.
Well, I got a call earlier here about one of our acquaintances and whatever who's been decertified politically in his endeavor of occupation. Has to do with elections. And he got a letter today decertifying him. And
for what grounds?
On the grounds that I believe that he objected to. I bet they didn't give a grounds. I hadn't dug into it, but I'll check into it. But what he did, he confronted one of our senators.
Yeah, I know that senator.
Yeah, he confronted one of our senators on another issue. And this is what happens in the political world. If you confront a high-ranking politician,
I've been
somewhere
there.
Like wherever.
Well, it can start with a dog catcher and work its way up.
Well, it can go up to the senators and whatever else.
And the president.
And whenever they put the word out on you, they will get you.
Well, what's he going to do?
I haven't discussed it with him. But it will affect his livelihood, of course. And this is a typical example. And we experienced it years ago.
Yeah.
Whenever you ask questions.
Yeah, I know. I've been there too.
When you ask questions, you might have freedom of speech.
As long as you don't say what you want to.
Yeah, that's right. But you will pay the
consequences. Picture of Mohammed.
You will pay the consequences of it. And it kind of makes me wonder sometimes if it's really worth it.
I know it ain't.
Yeah,
because nobody will go stand with you whenever you need them after you've been standing for them for a long time.
Well, I'm kind of becoming to the same whatever that
that particular feller and them there two fellers down the road here was the only ones ever offered any support whenever they started violating the law on me and Bob.
Well,
and they completely avoided regulations and just made it up as they went along. And what you get into, your loss is not worth the price of a lawyer.
Right.
So they get by with it.
It's disgusting. That's one word for it, and there's probably a lot of others for it. But whenever you go out here and you do everything by the book and whatever else, they'll make a new rule.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there's something, I don't know how it's went, but the people who are in positions of authority will find out on this thing how it went. But he had no problems until he confronted one of the senators over something else.
Yep.
Over another situation where some of our rights were being confiscated.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all it is. Whenever they take your rights, they confiscate them is what they do.
Yes, sir.
And I don't know. It just makes you wonder, what's the point? I wonder what the government's going to do eventually. Well, I know what they'll do. Once they've put everybody out of business, other than the big ones.
Them.
Well, you work for them right now, just about.
But you'll officially work for them.
You will officially be. You'll officially.
You'd be surprised how many people right now are working for the government, starting at the ground level and going up.
Yeah.
And there's the majority of the people in this country are getting some check of some sort from the government.
Mm-hmm. Well, who would want to go into business anymore? And when I'm talking about business, I'm not talking about shuffling papers.
You know, out there, a guy that's challenging Hillary Clinton, it ain't Malarkey, what is it?
He's a sworn socialist,
No,
isn't
not
he?
him, that other. O'Malley, I believe his name is, ain't
I don't recall.
I'm not talking about Bernie Sanders.
Okay.
Not Bernie Sanders.
Is there somebody else going to run?
Yeah, but he's O'Malley. He's the governor of Pennsylvania or somewhere, a former governor. But he said he didn't. He's talking. Somebody asked him something. He made the statement he didn't believe that regulations was any hindrance to business.
Is that right?
Yeah.
What kind of business is he in?
He's a politician.
Oh, okay.
It ain't no
Yeah.
hindrance to his business.
No, it don't hinder his business.
You
Of
know.
course not.
What's his name that run again? McGovern. McGovern actually retired from the Senate. He had this hotel, somewhere, hotel and a dining and all that stuff, and he went bankrupt. And he said if he'd realized that there was so much regulation on small business when he was in the Senate, that he would have done some things different.
Yeah, he wouldn't have gotten business, would he?
That's what he wouldn't have done.
He wouldn't have gotten business. The money right now made by politicians in high positions is insider trading. It's like the market went down 140 some points today, and I guarantee you they made a ton of money with it going down.
Well, if you can make it on cattle futures, you can make it anywhere.
Yeah, I believe Hillary. What did she take? $1,000 and made 100,000 in 6
Something
weeks.
like that. I think it might take a little bit longer.
Man, well, 6 months would have been a good turnaround.
Okay, let's see if this is what I told.
O'Malley.
Former Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley called the Republican Party's assertion that overly burdensome regulations are contributing to inequality patently bullshit. In an interview with NPR Morning Edition host Steve Inskeep that aired Monday, O'Malley, who is openly contemplating a bid for the Democratic presidential nomination, responded to questions concerning the GOP's crusade against regulations. He said he didn't see any truth to the argument from Republicans that too many government regulations can prevent Americans from advancing economically. They're unable to hire the lawyers to navigate them. O'Malley went on to agree that large corporations can navigate regulations in a way small businesses can't, saying our tax code is being turned into Swiss cheese. And certainly the concentrated wealth and accumulated power and the systematic deregulation of Wall Street has led to this situation where the economy isn't working for most of us. All of this is true, he said, but it is not true that regulation holds poor people down or regulation keeps the middle class from advancing. That kind of patently bullshit.
Yeah, right on. That right there is a guy, and he's one of thousands or millions that I'll bet you has never done anything in his life other than shuffle papers. And that's what we're doing. We're electing to our offices, and that starts right here at the bottom level. That's at this county. We elect career politicians. You take a look right now at how many politicians in our local area that have never done anything other than politics.
Yeah, I know.
I can name you one in particular. There may be a couple of them.
One just got unelected.
Well, that's there, and another just got reelected. But anyhow, and as far as I don't know, they don't have any comprehension of what it's like out here in the real world.
In 1988, McGovern had his first brush with the real world, mugged is a better world, when he took his speaker fees generated while traveling the world on various lecture tours and purchased a 46-year-old lease on the 150-room Stafford Inn in Stafford, Connecticut. Within 3 years, the inn went into bankruptcy, and McGovern wrote a letter to the Wall Street Journal in June 1992 explaining why. It's been 11 years. Wait a minute. It's been 11 years since the U.S. Senate since I left the U.S. Senate after serving 24 years in high public office. After leaving a career in politics, I devoted much of my time to public lectures that took me into every state in the Union and much of Europe, Asia, the Middle East, and Latin America. In 1988, I invested most of the earnings from this lecture circuit acquiring the leasehold on Connecticut's Stafford Inn. Hotels, inns, and restaurants has always held a special fascination for me. The Stafford Inn promised the realization of a long-time dream to own a combination hotel, restaurant, and public conference facility, complete with an experienced manager and staff. In retrospect, I wish I had known more about the hazards and difficulties of such a business, especially during a recession of the kind that hit New England just as I was acquiring this 43-year lease.
Well, do you notice the first part of what he said there? He was a career politician.
I also wish during the years I was in public office, I'd had this first-hand experience about the difficulties people face every day. The knowledge would have made me a better senator and more understanding presidential contender. To create job opportunities, we need entrepreneurs who will risk the capital against an expected payoff. Too often, however, public policy does not consider whether we are choking off these opportunities.
Well, why did he not get out here while he was doing his political career? Why didn't he get out here where the real people are at? I don't feel
he didn't want to.
Well, that right there describes about 99% of you politicians right now. They're career politicians. When they get out of their political career and they go out here, most of them are not dumb enough to get into it. Well, anyhow, we've got one person who just announced that he's going to run for president, Dr. Carson, who is not a politician. He may have to become one, but he's not one. And everybody else that I see in there, all they're doing is stepping up another step of the ladder, is all they're doing.
O'Malley, here's what he's done for a living. In December of 1982, while still in college, O'Malley joined the Gary Hart presidential campaign for the 1984 election. In late 1983, he volunteered to go to Iowa, where he phone banked, organized volunteers, and played guitar and sang at small fundraisers and other events. In 1986, while in law school, O'Malley was named by Congressman Barbara Mikulski as her state field director for her successful primary and general election campaigns for U.S. Senate. Later, he served as a legislative fellow in Mikulski's office from 87 to 88. In 1988, O'Malley was hired as assistant state's attorney for the city of Baltimore, holding that position until 1990. In 1990, O'Malley ran for the Maryland State Senate. He challenged one-term incumbent John A. Pica and the Democrat and lost by 44 votes. O'Malley was considered the underdog. O'Malley eventually lost the race. O'Malley served Bob Curry's. See, that's all he's ever done.
That's all he's ever done.
He ain't never turned a wrench or drove a nail.
This is what I'm saying.
I bet he ain't never broke a sweat unless he was on a treadmill.
Well, this is what I'm saying about our country.
Well, we're so
No, I about to come to the point, and I'm not going to be electing too many more people because I've about give up on it.
Well, you happen to pay them.
Well, I may have to be extorted.
Well, you're getting extorted.
I'm being extorted.
We done extorted to the end of this show.
Yeah, we're about out of it.
This is a good one, folks. Too bad Bob ain't here. See you later. Don't forget Saturday at 4 on WLAF.com. And
100.9.
1450 WLAF.com. 1450 AM, 100.9 FM, and I doubt it'll be on the internet this picture-wise this week. I got something else.